back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Matt Continetti is the American Enterprise scholar who is also daily on the commentary pod. Well, 4 times a week. He takes a day off every now and then. Matthew, good morning. Today is a tale of 13 seconds. First, Joe Biden from the White House, cut 21.
The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
And then Kamala Harris on the mall, cut 22.
I pledge to listen to experts, to those
So, Matt Continetti, we're garbage, and at least 75 million people are garbage. They voted for Trump. And Kamala is pledging to bring back the experts, Tony Fauci, Larry Krasner, the 51 intelligence experts that dismissed the Hunter Biden laptop. I think it was a disastrous 12-hour for Democrats. What do you think?
Well, I don't think it was the day that the Kamala Harris campaign wanted, Hugh. This was supposed to be Harris's time in the spotlight. They had the set constructed on the ellipse in front of the White House, wanted to have images of her in front of the White House, wanted to draw a contrast with Trump. And what happened on January 6th of 2021, instead, everyone is going to be talking about what Joe Biden said on that teleconference. There's video, there's the recording, people can listen to it and share it. The White House excuses for what Biden said about Trump supporters will not fly, in my opinion. So I think it was a huge fumble at the 5-yard line for the Democratic Party last night. And it's interesting that both candidates have had controversies stemming from their closing argument, but not because of anything they said, because of other people said. And of course, the President of the United States calling the supporters of the Republican candidate for president garbage is, I think, a lot more significant than a tasteless joke by a insult stand-up comic at Madison Square Garden.
Oh, immensely. And I'm glad you noted the garbage comment does have its origin in the insult comic. But you can't let Joe Biden out of the White House. And he's allegedly still president. So they can't say he doesn't, they're caught between the rock and the hard place. But I want to go to the second comment, Matt, because I'm just outraged by this. We are not supposed to be governed by experts. We're supposed to be a self-governing people. And the experts in Chicago have declared that a guy yelling Allahu Akbar who shoots a Jew on his way to synagogue is not a hate crime. The experts kept the school shut for 2 years. The experts dismissed the Hunter Biden laptop. Why in the world is she pledging to rely on experts?
Well, she's pledging because her party is composed of experts. If you listen to this speech, I watched it. The best thing I can say about Harris's closing argument speech was that it ended right before the first pitch of the World Series. So at least she didn't cut into my sports time. But if you listen to it, it was a coalition speech. It was her attempt to get the Democratic coalition energized in the final week of the election. Of course, she spent most of her time talking about reproductive rights, about abortion in her play for the women's vote. She talked about racial issues in her attempt to get minority turnout up for the Democrats. She talked about foreign policy, I think in a way that was meant to appeal to the Liz Cheney constituency. And here, when she talks about the experts, she's talking about Democratic voters. The major change in our politics, Hugh, as you are well aware, is that we now have educational polarization. The most important thing I need to know to determine how you're going to align politically is whether you have a 4-year college degree or higher, or you don't. And so when she says, I'm going to listen to the experts, she's playing to her base. But here's the thing. The experts have been in charge. They've been in charge for 4 years. When Biden won in 2020, I read articles in Politico, or rather I had to endure articles in Politico and other mainstream media outlets saying, well, now the professionals are back in town. Now they're going to be in charge again after 4 years of Trump. And look what happened. We had record inflation. We had an open border. And we have chaos on the world scene. So you're right. I think it's a mistake for her to cite the experts because the experts do not have a very good record. And I think voters are well aware of that.
Now, I want to quote your colleague, Abe Greenwald. Interviews are her kryptonite. I made a list of every interview that she has done, Matt, from the Dana Bash interview through Call Me Daddy, including her most recent one last night. I'm not sure which clip that is, Dwayne, from the Michigan one. You can WDIV Channel 4 in Detroit. Cut number 20. Play it for Matt, please.
What's your message to Michigan voters in terms of the economy? We have auto workers who are being laid off and those who fear that they might be laid off. The average person can't afford groceries or their rent. And recent polls in Michigan show that Michigan voters believe that Donald Trump would do a better job with handling the economy and bringing jobs back. What do you say to that?
Well, let's start with this. I come from the middle class, and I'll never forget where I come from. My mother worked very hard.
Stop. So, Matt, how can she still be? It's a laugh line. It's a punchline now. Does she? John Podhoretz has often said when Biden was the candidate, his campaign is incompetent. I think they are incompetent. How does anyone not tell her, don't say that again?
I don't know. It's clearly her go-to response to any question involving economics is to say that she grew up in a middle-class family, and it has become a punchline, as you suggest, Hugh. Why is she saying this? She's saying it because she needs to stall for time. This is why my colleague says that interviews are her kryptonite. It's because Harris doesn't want to answer any questions. She doesn't want to have any definitive positions because she doesn't want to be criticized, especially from her left. And from what we can tell, due to reporting, is that she's pretty indecisive as well. So she doesn't want criticism, and she also, it takes a long time to make up her mind about policy issues. So what does she do? She filibusters, just like the senator she was briefly. And so this answer on the middle class is another filibuster. It's a way to get from one question to the next, but it doesn't satisfy anyone for this reason. Harris is burdened, as she might say, by having to run as the successor to Joe Biden and having been part of his administration for 4 years. And so when you're faced with the question that the local reporter asked about how many voters are struggling in a swing state like Michigan, there's really nothing you can say if you're in Harris's position other than some cliches about growing up in a middle class family. Oh, and oh, by the way, I hate Donald Trump, right? That's her answer every single time. That's all she can say now.
Now, I want to read to you, Matt, from 1981. Ronald Reagan's famous first inaugural address had one famous line in it. In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problems. Government is the problem. I still believe that, and the government's gotten much, much bigger. Her appeal to experts is an appeal to the government getting bigger. She promised again last night Medicare covering elderly home care. You know, and I know that isn't going to happen because the bill is so astronomical as to stagger even the most Keynesian of economists. Does she have any policy proposal at all after 101 days of running that makes sense?
Hard to say. Hard to say because she has so few policy proposals. And of course, she has the policy proposals she ran under in 2020, which were all far left socialist proposals, and from which she is tried to present the illusion that she has separated or denounced or changed her mind on those far left ideas, while also leaving herself a lot of space to go back to them if she's elected president. You know, I think the most important statistic in this final week, Hugh, is um, how much do voters know Kamala Harris? And when you ask voters, do you need to know more about a candidate before you make your choice? This very small number of voters who are still undecided. The voters, the undecided voters say we need to know more about Harris, even after these months of being the Democratic nominee, of the joy turning into the fear, of the Tim Walz selection, the very few interviews she's given. Voters still don't feel as though they actually understand her. And that is her fault. And then you have this situation where last night's speech was supposed to be a way for Harris to reintroduce herself yet again and tell people about herself in this final week of the election. And what happens? Joe Biden steps on her entire event and we're going to be talking about his comments referring to Trump voters as garbage, at least for the next day. It's a situation, I think, that smacks of a campaign that, despite what it might tell the New York Times, is losing.
Two more questions before I get to the media. First question. Do you think there's no one that liaises between the Harris campaign and the White House? Because the idea of the president going on a Zoom call that is recorded and public, in which he calls the American people garbage at the same time of the closing argument, it's astonishing to me. Do you think Joe Biden is purposely trying to sabotage her?
I think he's definitely annoyed at the situation, and we had those comments at the hot mic from Ethel Kennedy's funeral, where he seemed to suggest that he'd be doing better than a Harris at this point. And we do have reporting, Hugh, that suggests that there are rifts between the Biden loyalists who are still in the White House and the Harris campaign, which ironically is based in Wilmington still, because she just took over the Biden structure. And we do also have reporting, Hugh, that suggests that if Harris does win next week, while she might not be able to change the cabinet, because we're almost certain to have a Republican Senate, which will block most appointments, she will change the White House staff. She will fire practically anyone connected to Biden in the White House. And so I think that would lead to some animosity. And the scheduling, I mean, snafu, if it was a snafu, maybe it was purposeful, we don't know, is just incredible. And let's not forget as well, it was just last week where Harris was giving one event and then Biden was giving another event where he said it was time to lock up Trump. He has
Yeah.
consistently been the drag on her campaign.
Okay, trick question to go out, and then I'm going to keep you during the break if I can have you for 5 more minutes. Other than the convention and her acceptance speech, what has been the best moment for Kamala Harris in this campaign?
Well, I think I recall talking to you the day after the presidential debate, Hugh, and I said that she won it on points. And you said she won. I would name the debate, but that was a long time ago.
The very long, so the debate and her acceptance speech. That's it. I don't think there's anything else. Welcome back. Matt Continetti. I'm a columnist for the Post. My most recent column is in the Post this morning. And it's about how MAGA has got to evolve if Trump wins. And it was written, submitted, and an edit before Jeff Bezos' letter came out. I wouldn't talk about it anyway, but I want people to know I've got a conflict of interest. I can't talk about Bezos' letter. But I can talk about something that came up on the Ruthless podcast yesterday. I sat in for Comfortably Smug. He was not there. And I made the argument legacy media is going to collapse in the next 4 years in much the way the Soviet Union did. It was there in 87. It was gone in 90. And I don't know that anyone's going to be left standing other than the New York Times because of puzzles. What do you think? Do you think it's just collapsing in front of our eyes? I mean, mainstream legacy TV, newspapers, just I listen to commentary and Ruthless and the editor. I don't go there for anything anymore. Is it going to collapse?
I mean, I do share your view of this, Hugh. Look at Donald Trump's media strategy, pegged to podcasts, trying to reach young men in particular through the media that young Americans consume. And it's not broadcast, it's not cable. I can speak from experience. My kids, they watch streaming or they watch YouTube. That's it. The old media universe is not there. Print. I mean, gosh, I'm a dinosaur in my middle age because
I heard
I still
yesterday you
read
want
print
the Washington
newspapers.
Post back. You want the
Yeah, right.
newspaper on the
Exactly.
doorstep.
Well, that's why I'm a conservative, Hugh. I live in the past, but um, this is an incredible moment. It seems to me when you have confidence in the media at such a low, and you also have the proliferation of these alternative outlets. You think about things like Substack, right? Newsletters now, the
Free
magazines,
press.
it's exactly things like the free press that exist in this kind of YouTube newsletter space. That's where all the energy is. And I also think it applies to book publishing as well. We're having more people, celebrities mainly right now, who are self-publishing and finding audiences that way. But I wouldn't be surprised if next year or 2 years we have some big phenomenon of the next big thriller writer is someone who self-publishes, someone who serializes on Substack. So it's actually a very exciting time in a way to see all these legacy media institutions um, uh, shake and crumble as actually very interesting, more populist ones emerge through technology.
And I think we'll have a better informed public, but we'll also have some terribly informed people who pick the wrong podcast to rely on.
Right.
Matt Continetti, thanks for staying with me a little bit longer. I look forward to commentary. I still think you're publishing too late. I really do. I had to walk 9 miles yesterday to finish the commentary podcast because it didn't go up until 11 or 12 o'clock. But I register my complaint every week with you.
We're looking out
I
for your health,
appreciate-
Hugh. We want you to exercise. That's why we're waiting.
You are taking care of me. Thank you, Continetti on X at Continetti. I'll be right back with Mary Catherine Hay.